Can you hear me now? Man, it's always something. I think I got it fixed. There we go. Yay. Thank you, Anna, my dear. Good thing you were here. I would have started this live and been having to delete it. Thanks, honey. How far are we? We're just 2 minutes in. I'll just put a note in the description or on the title of the video. No sound for the first 2 minutes. Fast forward. Because, yeah, I could edit it, but then it takes it out of a live stream. It makes it a regular video and it takes all your chat out. So that sucks. So let's see how the yellow looks. I think we got it, huh? We got sound, we got yellow. We're good to go. Is the sound all right? I was saying how I don't want to apologize, or I do want to apologize profusely for having so much wax on my teeth, but it's the only way I can live with these damn braces. I'm such a freaking baby. How are you, my dear? I just want to get right into stuff. I want to talk about the Tepe case that the accused unaliver, Mike McKee, he's back in Ohio, which kind of makes me sick to think of him in this state. But of course, I'm glad that he's here so that they can get him through the justice system. Justice is a process, right? Maybe I should take some wax off. Yeah, let me take a little bit. Sorry if I'm being gross. I know I'm such a gross gal. Oh, you're sick? You mean you're sick like ill, or you're sick about Mike McKee? Man, that's probably a little bit better, huh? Should I take any off of the top? But now it cuts up my lip. Ouch. And again, I apologize for being El Disgusto with my freaking teeth wax. My braces wax. Okay, that's probably going to be easier to understand me. I don't sound like I have a mouthful of cotton. I still have some wax on. I'm ill, but also about Mike McKee. Yeah, he's a monster, allegedly, right? I guess we have to wait until he gets his due process. He sure looks guilty AF, so we can talk about him looking extremely guilty. Thank goodness he's such a freaking bonehead that he kept the weapon, allegedly. That he didn't pick up his shell casings. And you know what? He didn't put words and sentences on his shell casings either, Annabise. Autocorrect, change the spelling in the last name, but I don't care. Oh, I'm sorry. I know. Don't you hate that? That drives me nuts when the autocorrect changes stuff and makes it not what you're trying to say. Is my lighting all wackadoodle? It looks like I have these weird shadows here. Let me see. If I move that, I don't know if that makes it any better or worse. I do not know. I've got so many lights. I'll just leave it alone. Okay, so I also want to talk about Biggly Piggly, who has just been going off the freaking rails. Oh, man almighty. What a nut job. Like, I am convinced that he is trying to demonstrate himself completely insane so that he can say, I can't be held accountable because I'm incompetent. You can't put me through any kind of justice procedure because I'm incompetent. That's what Michael Jeffries did. Michael Jeffries is kind of a parallel Epstein, little E. They knew each other well. They are both little proteges of Les Wex. I thought Les Wex was going to be, oh, you're so nice. I thought he was subpoenaed. I don't know that he is. I thought that about a week ago that he had been served a subpoena. I guess when you're really rich, you just fight him. I don't know. I mean, he's extraordinarily loaded. And again, he's really old too. He's 88 now. So, man, these dirt bags, well, at least we know they're not going to be candidates to get into heaven, right? They can just rot in purgatory or go straight to the other place. You look marvelous, darling. You are so sweet. I can't believe it's been a whole week since my last live. So, Annabees, I've applied for a full-time job as a domestic violence supporter advocate, domestic violence survivor advocate. So that's one of the things I've been busy with. I've had my grandbaby around. He's like almost 10 months, so he's crazy. He's on the go. And my 14-year-old just turned 14. Was that yesterday? Day before yesterday. So my youngest is now 14. It's just been a really, really busy time, and I'm not complaining, maybe a little bit, but I love making my videos. I kind of intentionally took a step back. I just felt like I needed to lay low. As Anna knows, and my regular viewers know, I was really triggered by the Tepe case. I mean, it's not about me. It's about Monique and Spence and their children and their loved ones. But that case just threw me. It really triggered my own trauma, and it just amped up my concern for domestic violence perps, because in my opinion, Biggly Piggly is a domestic violence perp, and Daddy Vladdy's a domestic violence perp, and same with BB. And domestic violence perps are the most dangerous people in the world, in my opinion, and they are terrorists, in my opinion. And then they go and do these terroristic things. I mean, Mike McKee terrorized the entire community of Columbus until he was captured, till he was arrested. The entire city was on edge. They were just like, dang, is he coming after me next? Like, because they had no idea who, what, where, when, why. Sherry, hello, my darling. Yeah, they are always so cute at that age. My favorite age of little ones is from about 18 months until about 6, when they're just like learning how to walk and talk, and they're still like, they're just like tiny people, and they're just hilarious. So yeah, he's getting there. But then once you have your own, you like, your favorite age is every age, right? Except teenagers. That's the roughest. How are you, my dear Sherry? Lovely to see you both. And so yeah, let's I've got lots of pages of notes, of course. There's been a ton of talk with the whole thing where I left off on my last video with Michael Cohen, who was Biggly Piggly's fixer, who then went to prison for his shenanigans with Stormy Daniels. He tried to run interference for Biggly Piggly with Tara Palmieri this last summer on a live interview with her, where he tried to say this whole Katie Johnson thing never happened. It was just a big lie. There's nobody that exists like that. And he really stepped in it. He really inserted himself right into the thick of it. So now that the e-files are slowly unrolling, they're rolling them out. And then that Ellie Leonard found, or no, it was one of her viewers that wanted to remain anonymous, that found this one specific email from Michael Cohen to his lawyer, or from his lawyer, about him having information to help bust Biggly Piggly, that he had information that he was hoping he could get some leverage to lighten his sentence. It's called like Article 35, I think. And so they made mention of that. The problem with the way they've been disclosing or releasing the Trumpstein files is that they're literally just like dumping thousands of them out of order. The emails are all out of order. So you can't look at an email thread except for the fact that ller is doing precisely that. She's putting things in chronological order. So she's already like downloaded every file and she's organizing them. And she's reading them. And she has like a whole team of volunteers helping her if you want to be one. I'll try to link that stuff up in the description. I think on her Substack. And I don't do Substack. I don't really know how Substack works. I would like to. But anyway, Ellie Leonard is who you would go to help decipher the Trumpstein files. So anybody who remembers the Pentagon Papers, and I don't remember the Pentagon Papers, I only learned about it in that movie called The Post with Meryl Streep about the New York Post, and it was about the Pentagon Papers in 1972. And that was the same thing with the Pentagon Papers, is they had this like 2,000-page document that was sort of like that document that Biggly Piggly threw onto the ground yesterday, that like stack of like 200 or 300 pages of accomplishments. Did you see that? I know Anna saw it. And he just threw it onto the ground after he took the clip off. It wasn't a clip like this. It was one of the black ones. I have one nearby, but he took the paper clip off of it. The paper clip tried to unalive him. The paper clip completely attacked, like it was a planned attack. Like I'm sure that Hillary was behind that one. She trained that paper clip, like Operation Paperclip. Anyway, sorry if I'm going a little nuts. I'm having fun with it. So the Pentagon Papers, when they were released and discovered and all that back in 1972, dozens of people went through the 2,000 pages and put them in order. It kind of reminded me of like crackheads getting shredded bank documents and putting them back together so that they can get the account numbers. It's some crazy, tedious work, but that's what Ellie Leonard is doing. So she found that email, or like I said, her viewer that wants to remain anonymous found that one email, and they are just chipping away at it. Lev Parnas, whose channel is Lev Remembers, Zev Shalev, who used to work for like 60 Minutes or 2020 or something like that, a producer for a long time. All these people have their own YouTube channels. Tara Palmieri and Waj Ali. His first name is longer, but people call him Waj because it's a hard name to get. I think he's Indian, and his last name is Ali. So he also has his own channel. They're all really good. They all are working closely together. And they're trying to get Mr. Cohen to do some splaining. So I've got some questions for Mr. Cohen, too, that I hope they're going to get to. I'll share that with you. I don't have ice in my water, and the ice water feels so good on my skin inside my mouth when it gets all torn up by these damn braces. Let's see. I'm good, thank you. Waiting on snowstorm coming through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah, us too here in Ohio. It's supposed to hit here too, Sherry. Right, it's going to hit Sherry, and then Anna, and then me. And then Boston Brian, right? He just moved back to Boston. He's almost there right now. He had moved to California for a few months, and he's finishing the trip, moving back to Boston. I'm happy for him. He's been posting about it. Anyway, let's see. You got the flu, Annabees, Sherry says. Sherry, yes, I am. I think I brought something home from the hospital. I should have worn a mask. Well, you probably got your flu shot because you're probably required to, right, Annabees? Like, my husband hasn't gotten his flu shot yet this year, and he's required to. But, life happens. I have mine. So sorry to hear. Hope you're feeling better soon. Yes, it sucks getting sick, doesn't it? Thank you, Sherry. Mr. Cohen is a sleeve bag. So I'm sure you said sleaze, and I'm sure spell check gotcha. Hilarious. I did get the flu shot. Well, at least you did that, so your flu probably wasn't that bad. It helps kind of take the edge off. But yeah, Mr. Cohen is a major sleaze bag. He's like your true mafiosa attorney. And he tried to say that he turned his life around and he had an awakening, like Lev Parnas. And also Anthony Scaramucci did that too. And Anthony Scaramucci and Michael Cohen were both some of the biggest sleaze bags in the world. I didn't think I would ever have any compassion for them. But I did watch them for a little bit and thought that they both had something to offer, but I also felt like neither one of them had really changed. So I quit watching them. It can be educational to watch them, but I just don't like them. I think they're gross sleaze bags. And I'm sorry to say that. I wish that they weren't. I think that Lev Parnas was probably in a similar boat to them. And he really did turn his life around. And he was not a fixer for Trump. I want to be clear about that because I used to think that he was a fixer for Trump. And a fixer is a really nasty thing. I mean, people watching this video probably know more than I do about what a fixer is. I only really know what a fixer is from that movie Pulp Fiction. So a fixer comes in and fixes the situation when it's bad, when it's really bad. And they also commit a lot of crimes and violence against others and fatal violence against others. That's what fixers do. Whatever it is, they'll fix it. And one of the things I wonder with Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels had testified that she was threatened, that the safety of her child was threatened when she was going through all that stuff with the Trumpster fire. And she said that one of Biggly Piggly's fixers came up to her car window when I think she was dropping off her kid or picking up her kid. And I think the kid was a little girl, like 18 months old. And I can't remember if the little girl was in the back seat or not. I think she was. But whoever this fixer was that was trying to intervene and intimidate her came up to her window and said, beautiful little girl you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to her. Because that's what they do. That's how they roll. And I want to know if that was Michael Cohen. I think it probably was. Really, really nasty. Yes, autocorrect again. I know, the sleeve bag. That's hilarious, but annoying, I'm sure. I used to have to take the flu shot because I had to work in healthcare, but haven't since I retired in 2019. See, I get it every year regardless because I hate getting the flu. I hate getting sick. Every time I get it, I feel like I'd rather be dead. I mean, that's dramatic, I know, but the sad thing is that people do pass away from the flu. We had a 16-year-old girl in this area, a 10th grader from Beaver Creek, Ohio, passed away between Christmas and New Year's. So that's like the Dayton area. 16-year-old girl, 10th grader. And then a couple of days later, I think it was like a 5 or 6-year-old in Austin, Texas, a little boy. passed away from the flu. It's insane. I take it every year. Anna B says it does lessen the symptoms if you get it. Yeah, absolutely. I recommend it for people if people are on the fence. I say just do it. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. You got to decide what's right for yourself. So, where did I leave off in my little book here? Today's the 21st. I don't think I've made a video since probably the 14th. So I wanted to say this. Yeah, this is where I should start. When I started my YouTube channel, I pretty much decided up front that I would not cover cases in Ohio, period. And one of the reasons was because I wanted to be very cautious about letting my viewers know even what part of Ohio I was in. I used to be really cagey about that. I used to never say which quadrant I was in. And then that all changed when the Springfield situation happened with the cats and dogs eating the cats. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut because I know Springfield well. I've known Springfield well for 40 years. I know the history of Springfield. And that whole thing with the people from the Haitians and trying to say that they were doing that was ridiculous, and it was racist. And the people that came, our governor, who I've got issues with, but that's aside from the point. Our governor had basically imported a bunch of Haitians for helping the Haitians and helping Springfield because there were so many jobs in Springfield that they couldn't fill, mostly factory jobs, I think, at like a Dole plant, a canning plant for Dole, like pineapple or something like that. Springfield used to be a big publishing city, and it was a very vibrant city back when, we all had newspapers and magazines. Like all the magazines in the world were printed in Springfield. And that was the backbone of Springfield. So when that dried up, when things went digital, Springfield dried up. And it's been kind of a ghost town. It was kind of a ghost city for a while. It dropped from I think at its peak, it was probably 80,000 people. And then it probably dropped to almost half that, like less than 50,000. And then roughly, maybe let's just say somewhere around 20,000 Haitians moved into Springfield and filled these jobs, and it did wonders for the economy. So it helped the whole city of Springfield. So yeah, there's issues, but it's not cats and dogs eating. That's not an issue. It's not overcrowded schools or hospitals, because that's not an issue. I think the biggest complaint that I've heard about Haitians in Springfield is that some of them drive without driver's licenses and they don't really know how to drive. And so some of the most dangerous drivers are Haitians who shouldn't be driving or who've had their licenses suspended. So there was a really bad accident a few years back on the first day of school. And I think the guy driving an SUV was actually drunk in the morning, and he crashed into a school bus. It might have been at the end of the day, but I think it was the beginning of the day. And one of the kids on the school bus passed away. I think he was 12. And I want to say his name was Austin. Let's give him a shout out, because him and his family deserve that. Let's see if this voice to text will work. Kid who died in the school bus accident in Springfield, Ohio. So the Haitian migrant, Oh, this is last year, March 6th, 2025. He was appealing his conviction. He had a 9 to 13 year sentence in the 2023 school bus crash. Aiden Clark. Yeah, I did not have his name right. Aiden Clark. So Aiden Clark's father asked the public specifically, because MAGA was really trying to use him and his tragedy as a political weapon. And his mother and father were like, please don't do that. Like, that's exactly what Aiden would not want. And that he was, even as a young kid, that he was really about equality and not being racist. And it was horrible. Of course, Bigley Pigley got his teeth into that story and he wouldn't give it up. And the father made a public statement on television that he said, please stop. This is making our pain worse. And then all these MAGAs attacked him. It was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, losing a child is the most unthinkable horror. And then, the first day of school, hideous. And then to have the president of the United States add to your pain when you specifically request for them to not do that very thing, and then to get attacked for it by the maggots, I'll call them, because that's disgusting. It does lessen the symptoms if you get it. Okay. So anyway, I had never planned on talking about Ohio cases for those types of reasons. And then I did start talking about Ohio with the situation in Springfield. And then I don't think I've talked about much Ohio cases. I know I've talked about that one down in the southern part of the state. I think it's like 5 or 8 people in this family that got unalived all at once in like 3 different locations. I want to say it's like Polk County, I think. Anyway, we won't get into that one. That's a really heinous situation. And then this situation with Monique and Spence Tepe, it really grabbed me. And, I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for DV and survivors of DV and like Gabby Petito. And I think the best thing that you can do when you've lost somebody, like what Gabby Petito's parents have done, is try to turn it into something positive for other survivors and for raising awareness and just being proactive. So that's pretty much what I've decided to do with all of my thoughts and feelings around the case. And then because of my connections to Columbus and OSU, and obviously the victims and the alleged perp, were all students at OSU. And, I have a very long history with Columbus that goes back 3 generations to my grandparents and my mom, and when I was younger, and, my sister, and, we almost moved to Columbus a few years ago. Columbus has a lot to offer, It's one of the only cities, or it might be the only city in all of Ohio, that while a lot of the cities and towns were suffering and let's just say dying, Columbus was the only city that was on an uptick. And it's been on a consistent uptick. I mean, there's just a lot going on in that city, and especially with OSU. And, of course, it's not all fantastic. There's some crap with OSU too, with Wexner. Little E used to hang out there, because he was tight with Wexner and they would donate a lot of money. I think I've told you guys, I had a friend who worked at the university taking the donations that were six figures and higher. So he worked directly with these people named and Michael Jeffries and some others. And he told me about these people before I had ever heard of them. And he just said they were so toxic that he did that job for a long time, and interacting with people like that just about killed him. Like spiritually, physically, emotionally, it just sucked the freaking life out of him. And he's a very strong, robust dude. He's over 6 feet tall. He used to work as like a newscaster. He went to school at OSU, and then he had that great job there for decades, and he had to quit before he retired because he was going under, and it was because of those specific people that he had to interface with. And I don't want to talk much more about it because I try to be very respectful of other people's stories, and of course I'm not giving his identity. And I feel the same way about the Tepe family. It's like I've really wanted to scale back on talking about it, as passionate as I am. I get all emotional, and it really takes it to a whole new level when it's so close to home. It's so close to home. And Spence being from Cincinnati, I was just down in Cincinnati today, and his family, he grew up in Mason County. I was driving through Mason today. It's kind of a little bedroom community outside of Cincinnati, a really nice area. And yeah, it's crazy. It's really sad. And Ohio is it's a lot of close knit communities. Ohio is known for its close knit communities, whether you're in a small town or a big city. People are very loyal and interconnected because everybody knows somebody that knows somebody. There's hardly 6 degrees of separation. It's more like 2 degrees of separation. A lot of times, I was talking to somebody recently, and she was saying how she lived in Arlington, Virginia. I was like, oh, that's funny. I was born in an apartment in Arlington, Virginia. And she was like, yeah, I lived in an apartment in Arlington, Virginia. And I was like, maybe it was the same one. And I was joking. And turns out she knew my mom, and she said, you know what? It actually was the same one. Your mom and I had this conversation once years ago. It was called the Gardens or something like that. I mean, Arlington's small, but that's just what a small world it is. And, this was just this nice woman that I met at one of the peace rallies, actually. So I haven't told you guys about that either, going to the peace rallies. Kind of like the No Kings kinds of things. Anyway, so, I try to do things to keep a low profile, basically, in case there's any weirdo that's going to try to find me. I mean, that's why I don't use my real name, and I would love to use my real name. And people that I email with and text with, of course, I share my real name. Shan said it once on her channel, and I was like, no. She was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's all right. I understand. It's not that big of a deal, and not that many people are going to catch it. So anyway, let's get back to the notes. So never plan to cover Ohio cases. And one of the reasons is because of that interconnectedness and just wanting to keep a professional distance, basically. So this Tepe case, I've been kind of tiptoeing around. It's just a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't made a whole lot of videos in the last couple of weeks, is because I'm I like to be very authentic with you guys. I like to share everything that is on my mind and in my heart. I mean, I just like to be completely honest about everything. And so that's why I'm explaining all this. But let's get more focused on the information. Um, the flock cameras. I'd never heard of those flock cameras. You guys probably know what they are. I guess they're surveillance cameras that are everywhere around the cities, kind of like the Palantir type of surveillance. And I know a lot of people are against it. I happen to be for it. Um, I think we shouldn't be doing anything that we wouldn't want to be caught on videotape anyway. This is just my opinion. So I feel like it keeps us all safer. And I think that there was a flock camera like on the corner near the Tepe's house that was pointed right at the Tepe's house that might have even been looking into the bedroom window. And that when law enforcement said that this whole crime may be caught on a surveillance camera, I believe that that's what they're talking about. And I don't know if it's actually true because they're keeping their cards really close to their chest. But it kind of seems like they wouldn't have said that if it wasn't a thing, in my opinion. But like I said, they want to keep their cards close to their chest, and we're going to support that. And so a few days ago, I think it was probably before my last video, so like a week ago, our president of the United States flipped a guy off at a Ford factory, probably in Michigan, maybe Detroit, I'm not sure. I think it was a Michigan Ford plant. And the guy said, pedophile protector. He yelled that to Biggly Piggly. And Biggly Piggly, walking around looking like a freaking mobster in his big black trench coat with his slicked back hair. And he flips the guy off, gives him the bird, and then says, F you, F you. And nothing surprises me with this slob. How unpresidential can you get? The man has hit the skids, and that was last week. He's hit the skids. It's just it's a freak show. It's a free for all. That really marks it for me. So the guy said pedophile protector, and then he got flipped off by the pedophile protector. He didn't call him a pedophile. He could have called him a pedophile. But anyway, let me see what you're saying here. I remember that case about several family members in different homes. Yeah, it was really bad. Pike County, I think. And it's heinous. It's definitely like mobster crap. And they're trying to say it was a custody battle over like one little kid. And at least one of the people that was done and dusted was a kid. But they left kids alive with the unalived. I mean, crazy. But no, the family grew a bunch of the green stuff, and it was before the green stuff got legalized in Ohio. And that whole thing about the custody battle is just ridiculous. But that's what happens with these cases. And I've seen it a lot in my state where I know people and I know things going on behind the scenes, and then I see the whole thing get whitewashed. Oh, it's just a custody battle. Right. Okay. A whole family unalives a whole family because of custody of one little kid. Sure. Got it. At least if you're going to lie, try harder. Be more believable. Come on. I had a great aunt who lived in Elyria, Ohio. Oh, that's a nice area. I don't know Elyria, but I know that it's up north. It's on Lake Erie. And I know somebody who lived there and loved it. It's a very historical city, a very small city. and near Cedar Rapids, Sandusky. It's right next to Sandusky, Ohio. Cedar Rapids amusement park is in Sandusky, right there on Lake Erie. So like west of Cleveland. And Cleveland rocks. Cleveland is amazing. I haven't been there in years, but I love Cleveland. Love, love, love Cleveland. It's just further away, and Cincinnati and Columbus are pretty close. And I love Cincinnati and Columbus too. So I do a lot in both of those cities for a lot of different reasons. So one of my cousins lives in Ohio. Yeah, I mean, Ohio, I'm always trying to pretend that there's nothing to see over here because I don't want people to crowd the place. I mean, one of the things I love about it is that it's not overpopulated. It's just not. Like I said, the only city on an uptick is Columbus, but they have so much investment and infrastructure growth, and so they're handling the uptick well. So there's plenty of room for everybody in Ohio, and with all of this ice crap, I do want to put the word out. Like, there's places in Ohio where a lot of these people would probably feel very safe, except now they're saying that they're going to come after the Haitians in Springfield. And I would imagine that they're not just blowing smoke. I would imagine that that's probably going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. And I hope not. But the thing is people in Ohio will fight for them. All the white people who've been complaining about what bad drivers they are, they will come out and fight for them. Seriously. That's just the way Ohio rolls, man. Near Cincinnati, I think. So Cincinnati is really hilly because it's right across the river from Kentucky. And then Columbus is really flat because it's in the middle of the state and there's a lot of farmland around there. But I think both are just beautiful, and there's a lot of culture in both, but there's even more culture in Cleveland because that's just a really big old city. But that's been on a downward diminishing process for years too, unfortunately. I don't mind cameras being on the roads, and Ring cameras are okay if you want them. I was going to say that I don't like being surveilled everywhere, but I just realized our phones already do that. I know, exactly, Annabese. I saw the best meme a few years ago where somebody is saying remember back in the day when we used to be all paranoid that the FBI was listening to our phone calls, and now we're just like, hey, Alexa, give me a recipe for pancakes. I don't know if I described it really well, but it was funny. Because, yeah, we are being surveilled all the time by our phones, by our laptops, by our Alexa, and by a bunch of flock cameras too now. But especially in inner cities where there's a lot of crime, it's helpful. It's very helpful. Big Brother is everywhere, but right. But then it gets into that, and it gets into where, it could be really scary if the freaking ICE agents are out to get you, even though you're American born and raised, but they don't like you because you talk smack about the Biggly Piggly. And then they're going to be able to find you because surveillance. And, it seems like that's what it's all about, really. But anyway, not to be paranoid, right? So yeah, not a good look with your president flipping somebody off. And when you're a public figure, just like when you're even a tiny creator on YouTube, you have to thicken your skin. You have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to just let it roll off your back. But when Biggly Piggly is so hypersensitive, it shows he's telling on himself. He's telling on himself, in my opinion. So recently, when was it when he said, I don't want thick red stuff pouring through my heart? Do you guys remember when Biggly Piggly said that? Like maybe like 2 weeks ago? He was talking about taking aspirin, that he takes more aspirin than his doctor. His doctor tells him not to take so much aspirin, but he's like, I do what I want, and I don't want thick red stuff pouring through my heart. And it's like, have you ever taken an anatomy class? Do you know anything about your body? Because red stuff isn't pouring through your heart. Your heart pumps stuff. But those words, and words are important to me. And people pick specific words for a reason, and they tell on themselves, I don't want thick red stuff pouring through my heart. To me, that sounds like a Titanic or a, ritualistic situation. I think he told on himself that he has seen the thick red stuff pouring through hearts. I think that that's a lot of what's in the Trumpstein files that they're so hypersensitive about. And now Anna Bees and I were just texting about this yesterday. There's something in those Riley, what's his name? The tapes that have come out. I know I have his name right here. Help me out, Anna. What's Riley's last name? Sasha Riley. That is his last name. Okay. So something in the Sasha Riley release where he's talking about illing farms, unaliving farms. So we know that Little E bought Zora Ranch to be his baby farm. Personally, I have a full-blown conspiracy theory that Elon and Biggly Piggly and all these freaking billionaires who think they're so superior and think that they should be spreading their seed everywhere, I believe that they are. I believe that they do have these breeding ranches and that they're making as many babies as they can, to try to do the world a favor, because, they're all God's gift to the world, so they can try to reproduce as much as possible. I could be wrong about that, and I sure as heck hope that I am, but I believe, like, what would stop them? I mean, they're monsters. They're wackadoodles. They're complete malignant narcissists. What would stop them? Their own morality or lack thereof. Could you believe that the other day when our president said that the only thing that could stop him would be his own morality? It's like, but you don't have any. You're scaring us. And yeah, what should stop you is like common sense and laws and compassion and empathy and being reasonable and, I don't know, just giving a crap. But no. Anyway, so in addition to my conspiracy theory of baby ranches, Sasha Riley revealed that they have unaliving ranches. So when they're done with people that they've used and abused, they take them out to the ranch and they're done with them. But we know that it's not that easy. They're greedy mofos and they're going to be selling parts. They're going to be selling any part that they can on the black market. You also know that they are into all the eugenics and weird science crap, and that they're going to be doing all kinds of Frankenstein experiments. Like, Adolf did a lot of horrible Frankenstein experiments. Like, that was a whole huge element of what Adolf was all about. And we know that these people idolize Adolf and want to be him. So It's my theory that it's not just an unaliving farm, but that it's a chop shop and that it's science crap. And I think that's what the island was used for too. I think that when we saw those pictures of the island looking so cold and just unexplainable, I think that a lot of what we were looking at in those photos, intuitively, we could see sort of kind of what you're not able to see. You know, like the doors that lock from the outside. I think that there's a lot of like morgues and graves and that kind of crap. We've been on for an hour already. Billy, woohoo, party on. And they can make a video looking like you did something bad because of AI. Exactly, Annabise. Oh, you are so far ahead of the game. That is exactly what is horrifying about AI, right? You can be set up like a bowling pin. Or they can make AI to say, see, look, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was Snuffleupagus. Or whoever. It was Elmo. It was Elmo that did it. It wasn't me. See, Elmo's in the video. That's not me. His disgusting bloated heart. OMG. I don't think he's going to last much longer. I mean, I can't believe that he's not 6 feet under already. He looks like he is. I think in his mind he is. So Billy, darling, hello, honey. We are always so happy to see you. Sasha, right, Sasha Riley. Yes, darlings. I agree they have breeding farms. Well, I wouldn't think that if little E hadn't said that that's why he bought Zorro Ranch was to be his breeding farm. I thought that was a bunch of crazy talk when I first heard the phrase. I was like, what? That's absurd. No one's going to have a breeding farm. Get real. But yeah, unfortunately. Probably Les Wex has that going on. You know, he bought an entire town on the east side of Columbus called New Albany. It was a farming town of like 600 people. He destroyed it. He took it over, and he's probably got all of that going on. There's probably like a whole city underground. Seriously, for real. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that's just my crazy paranoia. Yeah, all the infants born from the abuse, right? And then some of them being unalived because they're evidence, they're genetic evidence. So you guys, I haven't talked about my favorite, one of my favorite movies in a long time. I used to always mention it. It's called Zero Effect. And that's part of that. It's a murder mystery. And that's part of the plot, is that a baby is evidence. So like in that story, it wasn't statutory, but it was an assault. It was a violation. And then the baby was evidence of the violation. And so they unalived the mom, but then the fixer didn't have the heart to unalive the baby. So he stole the baby and raised the baby as his own. And then the baby grew up, tried to have a normal life. You got to see Zero Effect if you haven't seen it yet. It's got Ben Stiller, Bill Pullman, Ryan O'Neal. I forget who else, but it's really good. It's really well done. It was one of those, it was called a sleeper movie because when it came out, it won a bunch of Sundance Film Festival awards in like the early to mid 90s. But then it didn't really get discovered until a few years later. And then it was like only the movie buffs knew about Zero Effect. I was living in Seattle at the time, and it was like all the buzz, all the rage. It's a really, really good storyline. And it's a comedy too. So it's like a rom-com murder mystery. It's got it all. It's the thing with the two obs. Be observant, be objective, and then there's a third one, don't miss the obvious. So that's how to be a good detective. The two obs. Be observant, be objective. And don't miss the obvious. So it's more than two. Obviously, right? It's awful, Billy, Anna says, about the infants born from the abuse. With all the people living and passing, where are all the cemeteries that they need to exist? Well, like, I think Epstein Island's got like tombs underground, and that's probably what they have out there in New Albany too. And Zorro Ranch, and who knows what the F is under Mar-a-Lago? Who knows what the F is under the White House right now? I mean, I wonder both of those places if they're being used for nefarious activities. People who are into that kind of thing, they are addicts and they can't control themselves. So they're not going to stop because this, that, or the other. They're not gonna. And especially people who like underage kids, like, that is like a serious addiction. It's like a rug. It's like gambling. It's out of control. If they could control it, they wouldn't do it because it's illegal and they know that it jeopardizes everything, but they don't care because they're basically like junkies. And I wonder that about that Michael McKee. I really wonder what his rug of choice is. I'm very suspicious that it's not just steroids, that he probably had a gambling problem, a SMEX problem, a rug problem, maybe all the above, and that would explain a lot. That would explain the behavior in his marriage. That would explain the behavior in his practice and fleeing. And that could explain some of this heinous, atrocious tragedy that he's bestowed upon so many people affected by that horrible case. I think he's going to be arraigned the day after tomorrow, on Friday. And yeah, in Columbus. So he arrived to Columbus last night. And it just creeps me out that he's here because he's a real monster. He's a real monster, allegedly, in my opinion. Let's see. Oh, and then also they're just going to burn some of the remains, Billy, so that you don't have to worry about them. You just cremate them and you're done, right? Burn the evidence, destroy the evidence. But they're also going to use, they're going to make money off of what they can make money off of, and they're going to do experiments with what they can do experiments off of. And you know, these weirdos with this Titanic RA crap, it's all about regaining their youth. Like, they want to drink the red stuff with the adrenochrome, which is like the stress hormone that is released when you're scared. So they want to scare the people as much as they can before they finish them so that they can get the adrenochrome. I know it sounds nuts AF, but that's what they do. They want the adrenochrome because they think it's going to give them eternal youth. It's disgusting. It's completely insane. You can look up adrenochrome. I'm not making this crap up. And maybe I'll look it up and read it to you. But I got so much notes to go through, and I want to keep reading what you guys are saying. Let's see. Where did I leave off? With all the people living and passing, where are all the cemeteries they need to that would need to exist? Such a good question, Billy. So I think I answered it. Since the wars, even where? Yeah. I mean, just like the piles, like in the World War II, the gas chambers, just mass graves. I don't know, but I would think burning them. Trigger warning, retroactively. And where are all the children from the present wars? Yeah, Billy. The 20 or 30,000 Ukrainian that is a massive underestimation. I'm sure that's 20 or 30,000 that Daddy Vladdy admits to that are recorded. But yeah, I heard some stats the other day that were just so revolting about like the Palestinians and how many have been taken, whose lives have been taken, and how many children whose lives have been taken, and how many children under certain ages. And it was just insane. Again, maybe I look it up so I can read you some numbers, but it hurts my head even being vague about it like that. So I don't know. I mean, I want to try to keep positive too, as we're focusing on all this stuff that we're trying to learn from and we're trying to fight against. We got to take care of ourselves. We can't just like get bogged down in it. We got to keep our community going, take care of ourselves, take care of each other, laugh. I mean, as heinous as this crap is, sometimes you have to laugh about some of it. You just have to, because it's like you laugh or you cry. It's the same release, to quote a good old Joni Mitchell song, and she was right. I don't know, Billy, but it's an interesting thought. I know, all these freaking kids. One doesn't see any new cemeteries being created. Makes you wonder. Such a good point, Billy. OMG. And yeah, all the Palestinian people. We can use LiDAR to see underground. Oh, I'm not familiar with that, my dear. Is that like something from satellites that you can use? I don't know. Again, something I can look up, but I'm trying not to pick up my phone and look stuff up because that kind of makes my brain switch gears. I'm trying to stay focused on what you guys have to say and what I have written down. So terrible to even think about. And at the same time, we don't want to be like the ostriches sticking our heads in the sand, because that's not going to help anything. We got to know what's going on. We got to be able to identify the problems to resolve the problems. Junkies have zero excuse, still accountable for their actions, e.g. Nick. And one of my viewers asked me not to use that word. I know I did use it a few minutes ago, but I just want to bring that up, that, somebody was like, that's really disrespectful to call somebody who's suffering from their addiction that. And yeah, that whole thing with Nick Reiner, I've not been following that closely because I still wonder about those things that I have wondered about all along, with him maybe being radicalized. I mean, I just do knew. And that whole like Charles Manson, Jacob's Ladder type of thing. I don't know if that's just out there or if that has anything to do with anything. And honestly, we'll probably never know. That probably won't be anything that's brought up in the court system. Years later, I think McKee had a plan for her for a while, then finally saw opportunity to act on it for a sense of control, since he was losing his reputation. So, Billy, darling, you know that a woman's biggest fear, essentially, this is quoting Gavin de Becker from The Gift of Fear, if you're familiar with that book. A woman's biggest fear is being red-rummed by a psycho, by a significant other, or a stranger, but basically a man unaliving a woman. We know that happens way too often. A man's biggest fear is completely different. A man's biggest fear is being laughed at and being made a fool of by a woman. I think that you're right about that. I think that Mike McKee felt like um, Monique made a fool of him when she left him high and dry, that it was really hard for him to tell that story to anybody, to face people, to take any accountability or ownership. He probably put it all on her in his imagination as well, that she was just a horrible person for bailing on him, not thinking, well, why would she do that? Because allegedly there's that whole pillow story, him smothering her with a pillow and she woke up in the middle of the night. Don't know if that's true or not. There's also allegations of him choking her, which, again, don't know if they're true or not. I'm pretty sure it's been verified that he was very mean to Monique. He was very mean to other people, and he was very mean to their dog, and that she was afraid of him, that she did fear for her life, and that he threatened her life a few times before she left him, and that he told her specifically, you will always be a part of my life. If you try to leave me, I will end it for you. So it's real typical with DV. So, DV doesn't have to be hands-on. It doesn't have to be. It can just be that one act of violence, just like with my father. He was very nurturing and gentle with us, other than when he tried to poison us with the carbon monoxide, or did poison us with the carbon monoxide. Other than that, I used to joke, like, other than that momentary lapse of reasoning. And then I got older and I was like, I need to quit joking about that. Like, that's a deflection. That's a cop out. All it takes is that one time. So I believe that you're right on track. I believe that he made up his mind a long time ago that he was going to do it, and that he just was looking for the right time and place. He'd probably been stalking her for years. He probably had trouble finding her. Probably she did a good job of laying low, and however it is that he found them, whether it was the wedding video, whether it was, they had mutual friends. So I would think that it was mutual friends, whether it was like the glitch in the system with the divorce stuff, which, Lana swears that could never happen, but you never know. She might be right. She might be wrong. It could be that. It could be, like I said, friends. It could be the video. It could be all the above, that all of these things helped him to find an opportunity, and that he could have made other trips trying to find that opportunity. And this was the time that the stars were aligned, so to speak. But I don't know. I kind of don't think that he had been stalking her with the intent to do that and then not doing it and then finally doing it. I think he was probably stalking her, waiting for the right opportunity. And whatever it is that made him think it was the right opportunity, because, maybe it had something to do with the holidays. Maybe, like you said, it had something to do with his practice and the malpractice lawsuits. It's hard to say. And hopefully we'll get some answers. We'll see what happens now. But yeah, the thing about the years later, I've heard a lot of people say before he was arrested and even after he was arrested, like, oh, it couldn't be him because they got divorced 8 years ago. Like, he wouldn't be holding on to it that long. It's like, no, stalkers hold on to crap forever. But I'm pretty sure that they were together for about 10 years. They were the same age. They were both 39. Spence was a couple years younger. He was 37. He just turned 37 in December, right before this happened. And then their oldest daughter just turned 5 right after this happened. So she's going to remember everything about that night. Someday she's going to find out that that's the night that it happened, and she's going to need a lifetime of therapy for sure. I mean, she was so close to 5. She's going to remember everything. Everything. But what was I saying about it must work since they've been using it for so long? I don't know. And I'm not sure, my dear, what you were referring to with that. Thanks for tagging me. So I should have read it sooner. That was like 10 minutes ago. If you want to put it in the chat, I'll try to catch up to the current chat. Anyway, I wanted to finish that thought about like, why now? Maybe the holidays. You know, I whenever I do like the maybe this, maybe that, maybe the other thing, I always go to all the above, like that it's all like a cumulative building effect. Like there usually is what they call a precipitating factor when somebody does something like this. If they try to injure themselves or danger to someone else, there's usually a precipitating event. And it can be like getting dumped. It can be getting triggered by the holidays. It can be crap going bad at work. You know, for all we know, it could be anything. I think he was abusing steroids. I think it's very highly probable that he paid for companionship. If you're using steroids, it shrinks your junk. Might make you incapable of performing. Maybe somebody made fun of him because he couldn't perform. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, I'm totally making that up off the top of my head, but I think that could be accurate. You know, maybe he was trying to get it on with a prostitute and he had trouble because of this, that, and the other. And that was the final straw. And it just brought it all back. And the crap with the lawsuits and crap with the holidays and crap with seeing that freaking wedding video. It's too bad because he could have had a life with her if he wasn't such a freaking pig. He had her. She wanted to be with him. She married him. She wanted to make it work. Oh, but what I was starting to say, which I didn't finish, I think that they dated I think they were together for the most part from the time they were roughly 20 or shortly thereafter, all the way up until they were about 30. So that's why I think it was such a profound imprint on his pathology. It wasn't like they just got married, it went to up 5 months later, and then the divorce was finalized another year or year and a half later. It was possibly as many as 8 years before that they were dating. I don't know exactly, but I know that they were dating a lot longer than people talk about. I know that because I pay attention to everything and I just pick up pieces of information everywhere. I think that they were definitely dating by the time they were 23. So at least 6 years, because if they're 39 now, 10 years ago is 9 years ago is when the divorce was finalized. 10 years ago is when it was filed. Like, so they were married in 2015, filed in 2016, and then it was finalized in 2017. So they were about 29 when they filed, about 30 when it was done. So they were dating, they were together at least from the age of 23 until 29. Maybe, I mean, 29 is kind of stretching it because I think they were already done before that, like when they were 28, but they hadn't gotten the paperwork done to end the marriage. But They might have started dating before 23. I think that they lived together. So, this was a big relationship is what I'm trying to say. Like people keep missing that because nobody really wants to talk about it because it's like it doesn't matter if they were together for 50 years. He didn't own her and he had no right to do anything like that. Of course not. That's insane. But just trying to make sense of it because people are like, well, they were only together for 5 months and then almost 10 years later to do this. That just doesn't make sense. It's like, no, they were together for almost 10 years, in my opinion, in my estimation, from the information that I've gathered. Okay, I'm catching up. It must work since they've been using it for so long. LiDAR is like sonar. They can detect something underground. Hey, Drea, what's up? And ranging is a remote sensing technology that uses pulsed laser light to measure distances, creating precise 3D maps of environments functioning like radar, but with light. It works by emitting LA. Lasers, is that what you were going to say? LA lasers. Lasers. Anna B says, hi, Drea. Hello, Drea. Sherry says, Billy says, Drea. And Billy says, she was probably trying to leave him for just as long, my opinion. Yeah. So I think that they had their wedding planned a few times. I don't know if they called it off a few times or if they just postponed it a few times, but I'm pretty sure it was dragging on. So I think they were together for at least 6 years before the wedding. That's kind of what I've surmised from all of my digging and researching and just paying attention. I've always got an ear on the ground. I do a lot of sleuthing, but I try to show my receipts. And that's a tough one. Like I said, people don't want to talk about it, Momo, yeah, that was her nickname. Monique went by Mo, and Spence called her Momo. So cute, so adorable. Yes, lasers. I copied it from Google. Okay. So let's see what else we got here. Oh, did you know that people in Minnesota were hitting ice cars with slices of bologna? Did you guys hear about this? So they were throwing bologna at the cars of the ICE officers. That gets the message across. I like that. I think that's funny. And, I've said this before, but let me say it again. We hear about the price of eggs all the time. The price of eggs, the price of eggs, the price of eggs, the price of eggs. I think that is code. I don't think they're talking about the chicken eggs that we eat from the grocery store or the chickens that we have in our backyard so that we have our own fresh eggs. When they talk about the price of eggs, I think that they're talking about these baby farms. Maybe, possibly. What do you guys think? You think I'm just nuts? I mean, because it's just too freaking weird. When I was a teenager, I had a saying, like, if you were talking about something weird, I'd be like, what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China? And that meant, like, you're completely in left field. Like, what the F are you talking about? So then with all this crap with the price of eggs and all this China talk, it's just like, OMG. Weird. So, yeah, I've said that before, but I want to say it again. I think that this whole fixation on the price of eggs is not talking about groceries. I think they're talking about baby farms. Because the billionaires are all, if you're in the club, you're in the club. And they're probably all doing it. So Haley Robeson and Lisa Phillips wrote some letters to the judge a few days ago. And I wonder if I can look up those letters or where I could find them. Let's see. The letters that Lisa Phillips and Haley Robeson wrote to the judge about the Epstein files. Okay, so this was big news. Haley Robeson, the survivor of Epstein's abuse, filed a letter. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, who authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, have asked a judge to appoint an independent monitor to oversee blockbuster documents. I just want to know if I can actually find those letters. I don't know if those letters are public or not. I'll do some more digging and see, or if you guys know and tell me what you know about it. But the letters that Haley Robeson and Lisa Phillips wrote, some good stuff, some really good stuff. And apparently Steve Bannon has photographs of Jizz and Biggly Piggly on an airplane together as recently as 2021, which is funny since they say they didn't really know each other, right? Even Elon would say, oh, I didn't really know her. All those pictures of her and me hanging out at parties. We weren't really hanging out at parties. She was photobombing me. She was obsessed with me. Every time she'd see me at a party, she'd photobomb me, and then there'd be a picture of us looking like we were hanging out. Again, if you're gonna freaking lie, like, come up with something better, you goofballs. Let's see. And pee bottles, Billy Darling. What about the pee bottles? What? We said that, except it was the price of tea in China. Oh, that's great. I love it, Annabise. That's so funny that you said that. Price of tea in China, and I said price of eggs in China. Eggs did get really expensive, though, didn't they? They, like, at Aldi's in Ohio a few years ago, they had eggs, a dozen eggs for 50 cents a dozen. And then at some point, I don't think they were $9 a dozen at Aldi's, but I think they got up to be about $9, possibly at Kroger's even here in Ohio. I think it's just a couple of bucks for a dozen eggs now. But yeah, it was insane. I mean, the 50 cents for a dozen, that was kind of crazy the other way. That was super exciting, but wild and crazy. I think Aldi's was just trying to get their foot in the door with getting people to get excited about shopping there. They had gallons of milk for 99 cents and a dozen eggs for 50 cents for a long time, for a couple of years. It was the bomb. Like, they got me excited about shopping at Aldi's. Like, as much as I like Costco, I was like, Aldi's is better prices than Costco, and you don't have to like fill your space with 10 whatever's all saran wrapped together. You don't have to invest all that real estate in the product. You can just buy what you need right now. And throwing pee bottles too. Oh, Minnesota. I did not hear about the pee bottles, Billy Darling. Thank you for sharing that with me. I just loved hearing about the baloney. I just thought that was perfect. Beer bottles full of pee-pee. That is so gross, but they kind of earned it. Hate to say it, but man, they're just absolute thugs. Like, what they're doing is not legal, and they're probably all going to have to pay. They're probably all going to be held accountable legally. They're not going to be absolved because Donnie says that they're above the law. They're not. Nobody's above the law. Not even him. I know it seems like he is right now, but It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. It's still high here. Oh, the price of eggs. Well, yeah, you're in California. Everything's high there, huh? It's crazy. LOL, Billy, I didn't know that. The PP. Get the bottles and the baloney news from Blue Sky. Oh, you got that from Blue Sky? See, I'm not on Blue Sky. Maybe I should be. But yeah, just the fact, the way Renee Good was targeted, we've probably all watched the videotape so many times of what's his name, Jonathan Ross, circling the car. Renee Good is in the car, communicating with him directly. She's like waving cars by. She says something like, I'm gonna turn around or something. So she's like, go ahead. And then Jonathan Ross is walking around her car. Renee's girlfriend, Rebecca, who goes by Becca, is completely mouthing off to Jonathan Ross. And one of the last things she says to him is, I'm an effing Army vet or something. And he was military vet too. But, she was upsetting him intentionally. And, I don't recommend that, but that's not illegal. It's not, it doesn't feel safe to me. But, she was about to get into the car with Renee. Well, before that, Renee had said, dude, I'm not mad at you. And then he went around to the back to videotape the license plate. And Becca said, we don't change our plates every day. It'll be the same plates when you come and find us later on, when you come to get us later on, or something like that. And then both her and Jonathan are walking around the passenger side of the car. And that's when she says, why don't you go get yourself some lunch, big boy? And that's when, this is really important to me. That's when you see his hand come towards the camera, because he's holding his camera in his right hand and then he's putting it in his left hand. He's right-handed. Why would he put it in his left hand? In my opinion, it's because he already knew he was going to grab his gun. When you're law enforcement, you do not grab your gun unless you are ready to fire it. You never take that thing out of the holster unless you're ready to use it. And if you do use it, you aim to unalive. That's how they're trained. So you don't take it out unless it's life and death. So she's saying, go get some lunch, big boy. And he's getting his right hand available to take it out. And then he's walking right around the car he's walking right in front of the car, which this is important because I did not know this, that police have been jumping in front of people's cars so they can charge them with attempted red rum for decades. Like, that's a thing. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that until a few days ago, but it's totally a thing. So he's doing the classic walking in front of the car so then he can make trouble, but he's already got his hand on the holster. And at one point when he's still in front of the car, you can hear him like pop the snap. So then he's coming around the side of the car. By the time he is on the driver's side, he's already got that thing in his hand and he's firing. And as she's trying to pull out and away, and he is dropping his phone. So you see like the sky and stuff. But then he doesn't drop his phone. It's just like flying around. But then he still grabs it. And I think the first shot went right through the windshield. Second and third shots, I think, were from the side, actually. And then they said that she had 4 bullet wounds, but it's just the 3 shots. Like, one wound was through a hand, I think her left hand. 2 wounds were like her right side. And then the one wound to her face, I think. I'm not sure. I think it's like the left side of her face or something. And then she didn't pass away, I don't think, until she was at the hospital like an hour later. So had that police officer been allowed to try to render aid to her, could have made a difference. It's just disgusting. It's so disgusting. But what I really wanted to say before I read your comments and move on is that I believe that when he was deciding to fire, as he's coming around the front of the car, he's already got his firearm. I think he wanted to hit Becca. I think he saw that she was getting in the car, and he is coming around, and I think he was hoping to get them both, but Becca never got in the car, so he only got her girlfriend. And what an effing nightmare. The whole thing is just so disgusting. And even when a shot's not fired, even if you just bring your firearm out of the holster, you need to go on a paid administrative leave, and there needs to be a thorough investigation. Did you really need to do that? That's how it is. So the fact that they said there's not going to be an investigation is an obvious cover-up. Obvious cover-up. We all know that. Disgusting. But yeah, I really think that he thought that Becca was going to be in the car receiving some of that lead that he was pumping out. Unbelievable. And then the fact that she's, fleeing as he's still firing, which is like rule number 1, is that you never fire into a moving vehicle, simply because the vehicle can crash and injure more people. I mean, he's lucky there weren't ICE agents injured. He's lucky there weren't people across the street that were injured. That was just insane. Just insane. And you know what? That was all of maybe 2 weeks ago. I mean, the lightning speed that these tragic, crazy stories just keep flying out of our government is ridiculous. Let's see. Got the bottles and baloney from Blue Sky. Premeditation. Yeah, Billy, exactly. Yes, they trick you that way. No, I didn't know that. Oh, about jumping in front of the car? I have my own little story with that, but I'll save that for another video since this is already an hour and a half. I think I told that story once before, but maybe I'll tell it more better. Billy says the crackheads do it in NOLA and Northern California. Is that what NOLA is? Northern Los Angeles, and cops will walk out in front of your car. I don't drive much here in Cali. Gotta go. Good night, all you gals. Good night, Sherry. Thanks so much for coming in and hanging out and saying hi and bye, my dear. New Orleans. Okay. Louisiana. The crackheads do it in New Orleans, and cops will walk out in front of your car. Night, night, Sherry. Yeah. Sweet dreams, my darling. Again, thanks a lot for being part of the chat. That's awesome. So the misogyny. I don't think that whole scenario would have happened if one of Renee or Becca was a guy. I think that it was easy to spot them as probable dykes, and that, men have been abusing and unaliving women and not being held accountable. For as long as there's been humans, probably. That needs to stop. That absolutely needs to stop. Um, so in Haley Robeson and Lisa Phillips' letters, I think they say they allege that Mar-a-Lago was a hub for the transporting. I think. So one of the things that I've gathered about Michael Cohen and the lies that he has said with Tara Palmieri and others is that he tried to say, like, I didn't know Jeffrey. I didn't cross paths with him. He was in Biggly Piggly's orbit before me, and we didn't overlap. And that's a lie. Simply because everybody knew Little E. He was everywhere, like savoir faire. Everybody knew him. If you were in New York and you were around DJT, you knew him. So the fact that he said that he didn't know him at all, that he'd never met him, never spoken with him, sure, maybe never spoke with him, maybe never met him formally, but it's completely impossible that he hadn't crossed paths with him in that world of New York and Donnie and all of that crap. I mean, Michael Cohen was like the VP for the pageants. He even tried to say that Biggly Piggly never walked in on the teenage girls, that when he's told that story that it was just bluster, that he was just making it up. And he said this in Tara Palmieri's interview last summer. He was like, no, I was there all the time. I was always with him. I know he never did that. I know that he was lying. And that was when I knew he was a huge fat liar. And it also made me think that Michael Cohen was probably getting some action from the underage girls too. And that's why he was trying to just make it all go away. So that's what I think. I know that Michael Cohen was unfaithful to his wife. Gross guy like that, even having a wife, is just insane. I mean, his daughter was like 15 when Biggly Piggly made some lewd comment to her, and Michael was okay with it. Like, I think she was like at the tennis club, and Biggly Piggly hadn't seen her in a while, so she kind of had blossomed some, and he made some comments about how hot she was, I think directly to her in front of Michael, and that Michael was just like, whatever. Like, that's just so freaking disgusting. And, Michael almost lost his whole family when he went to jail. Like, they all turned on him, and they were all just like, yeah, we're done with you. He was able to win them back, but his ass is grass. He's going to lose everything, I think. Right now, he's trying to buddy up to Biggly Piggly to try to gain favoritism, and he's burned all of his bridges. He's lied to everybody. You can't just keep flip-flopping like that. And he's an idiot. He's just gross, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. And especially because he handled that house deal in Florida. The big mansion that was like $40 million that Little E was planning on buying. And then he took Biggly Piggly to look at the property because there was a swimming pool that he wanted Biggly Piggly's opinion about how to move the pool. And then Biggly Piggly bought it out from underneath him for like $44 million. And then they said that was what cost them their friendship. Then a couple years later, Biggly Piggly sold it for twice that much to a Russian oligarch. But Little E knew Biggly Piggly's finances. He knew that he did not have anywhere close to $44 million when he bought that place. So he knew that he was laundering money for Russian oligarchs with the purchase, let alone with the sale of it. But because Michael Cohen was handling all of those real estate deals with that place, and that involved little E, of course he knew him. Of course he knew him. That's insane. Let's see. So I think it was in yesterday's or today's press conference. Yesterday he spoke for like 2 hours when the paperclip tried to attack him, and then he threw the hundreds of pages of accomplishments on the floor because he crazy like that. And then today he was just like, I don't know, talking forever over there in Switzerland, like forever and ever and ever, like he never shut up. I couldn't watch. But I can't remember if it was today or yesterday. He said, I caught this one part where he said that he got along well with Gavin Newsom when he was president. He said, I got along well with Gavin Newsom when I was president. Like, that's almost a direct quote. I was thinking he was going to say when I was president the first time or something. But I'm thinking, did he forget for that moment that he's president now? He's like, I got along well with Gavin Newsom when I was president. I think he might have forgotten that he was still president when he said that today or yesterday. I don't know. I'm going to look into it some more. Let's see. Oh, I was going to try to look up that name of the other Michael David McKee's wife, the one that married a guy 2 weeks after Momo and Mike got a divorce. Oh, I meant to look that up. I forgot, but I know where to look for it, so I will still get that. Because the guy had a very, very interesting name. It was real ethnic. And he owned dry cleaner. I think he owned like a cleaning company. And then that Michael McKee owned, I think, a construction company. Anyway. Totally different Michael McKee, so it's kind of irrelevant anyway. But I have a question about Michael McKee. When the police first spoke with him, maybe they said, where were you on the night of December 30th? And he said, well, I was at work. And then I rented a cot and I was sleeping in the snooze room, and then I was still at work. And I wonder if he did something like what Scott Peterson did that gave himself away really quickly and easily. I mean, Scott Peterson gave himself away a million times every turn. First he said he was out golfing on Christmas, and then he said he was out fishing on Christmas. And when the police asked him about it and he said he was fishing, he immediately pulled a receipt out of his pocket for the marina. And as soon as he did that, they were like, this guy's guilty AF. Like, we didn't ask to see a receipt. What? Just one of the many millions of things that he did to give himself away. But I wonder if Mike McKee did something like that. If he was like, oh, I was sleeping in, the sleeping quarters. I rented a cot, and you can check my GPS cell phone pings to prove that I was there. I wonder. Something that was just like a big red flag right away, where they were like, well, we didn't ask you about your cell phone pings. Why are you offering up your cell phone pings? Those are the kinds of things that criminals don't realize they're tripping themselves up with There's so many things like that. Like, as you know, when my father made that attempt on our lives with the carbon monoxide, he was in his late 30s and he was super intelligent and articulate, and he was a guy in his late 30s. And when they said at the hospital, at the ER, when they said carbon monoxide poisoning, he pretended he'd never heard of carbon monoxide. He was like, what? And I've told this story to you guys a few times. If you've seen those tapes, I know my stuff gets lost in all of my videos, but I know some of you probably caught some of it. Where the minute he pretended that he'd never heard of carbon monoxide, that was when the social worker and the cop were ready to just tackle him. Like, they practically just like threw their clipboards and were just like, okay, let's go, buddy. Like, that's when they knew he was lying for sure, was when he said, huh? I've never heard of carbon monoxide. What's that? I was 11 and I was standing right next to him, and I was like, well, I've never heard of carbon monoxide either. So I believed him, but I could see in those moments, I could see that the police officer and the social worker did not believe him, and that they were ragingly pissed off, and that they wanted. So I was like, wow, it was just interesting to have that whole experience as an 11-year-old. And then to work through that part of the PTSD 10 years later and realizing that it was intentional, that it was not an accident, that he absolutely knew what carbon monoxide was. He fixed his own car, and he had been working on the car extensively before the road trip, which you would do before a road trip, but he was rigging it up to get the carbon monoxide poisoning in the back, because it was a station wagon and we were riding in the back, like with the back seats down, like with the big bed back there with the cat and the dog. And then he was riding in the front. And when he had the car idling, when this happened, so I'm sitting right behind him and I'm noticing these things, but I'm getting woozy, not realizing it. But I'm like, why is his window down right to where his nose is? And oh, the dog is going to throw up on my leg. And then I opened up the car door and I fell out and passed out. And then when I came to, there was like 100 people and a bunch of ambulances. And me and my sister were laid out on the asphalt there at McDonald's in Arizona, wherever that was, Annabees. I know you pretty much nailed it. I forget, was it like where Highway 10 would go through Arizona? Because we're moving from Los Angeles, from Malibu to Florida for the imaginary job offer. Trauma, and you have the PTSD, and you're putting things together over time as you're getting older and you're learning things. It's just wild, the things that trigger you and the places where your mind goes, and then how you come to realize things. And again, it's like I knew it in the moment that the law enforcement and the social worker didn't believe him. But I thought, that's weird that they don't believe him, because I believe him, because he's my dad and as dependent on him, and I couldn't for the life of me ever have imagined that he would have done something like that. We had a good relationship. We did. I mean, again, it's just, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of this little 5-year-old girl who was there with her 1.5-year-old brother, screaming and crying for hours before they were rescued. And I'm just so glad that they were rescued that morning. That could have gone on for a couple of days. They could have died of dehydration. if nobody was planning on seeing them maybe until New Year's Eve. It's really, really awful to think about that. I mean, the poor baby, he probably had a really disgusting diaper, right? And the little girl is going to remember that. She was, if he had taken a dump, that would have just made it that much worse for both of them. And even if he hadn't taken a dump, just having a giant wet diaper and not knowing why the time is passing and nobody's coming. Mother effer. Let's see. They all in those files. Ugh. Yeah, those files are, I think, going to contain and the farms for unaliving type of stuff. Oh my goodness, Jazz, sweetheart. Oh, you're responding to my trauma of my shit with my dad. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying all along with the Tepes, is that it really triggers the shit with my dad. I mean, my dad was a lot like Scott Peterson, and he was somewhat like this Michael McKee MF. These white guys element with the narcissism is they think that they're smarter than everybody. They think they got it wired. And then it's something as stupid as like, what? I've never heard of carbon monoxide, that just knocks the whole freaking house of cards down. And like with Scott Peterson, the second he took out that receipt, it was over. It was over. I mean, there was a ton of other stuff too, like he'd had pizza and he'd been washing his clothes and there was bleach involved. And then after he's talking to the police in the house for a little bit, he goes out the back door and he throws his gloves down at the ground and he yells, "Fuck!" And there's a cop right there. He didn't see him, and the cop's just like, all right, dude. Yeah. Because when you're worried about something, you're not going to order pizza. You're not going to have an appetite. And then when they had their headquarters at like a Ramada Inn, and volunteers had brought in all kinds of bagels and fruit and cheese and big trays of food for the search party. And Scott Peterson is there with his little plate and he's picking out all the food and he's eating it up and getting more. And they're just like, no. You didn't know that, did you? You just gave yourself away. Some more. That stuff. So sad, Jazz. Well, thank you, dear. I mean, I only tell this story because every time I tell it, I learn something new. And I think it's really important to be able to talk about, see you talk about it kind of casually. And then they're like, oh, maybe that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, thinking about the little girl, the little 5-year-old, I mean, she was 4 when it happened, but she turned 5 right after. And we know kids, we know that even a 4-year-old would be pretty cognizant of the whole thing, even if she just turned 4. But turning 5, very well developed. And the little guy, 17 months at the time, he might actually remember some of that morning. That might stick in his craw, really big. Like I remember meeting my great aunt when I was about 18 months old. And for most of my life, I thought that I didn't meet her and that I had had a dream that I met her. And then in my teens, I asked my grandmother about it. I was like, I think I had this dream about going to meet Aunt Kate. And I told her the whole setting that she took me there. And it was this nice old house, brick with like black wrought iron fence. And, Aunt Kate was in, but then the second we walked in, she just like popped up and she lit up like a Christmas tree. And it was a really cool interaction. And then my grandmother told me, like, yeah, I took you there, and it's just wild. It's so wild. Like, that's probably my earliest memory. I have a pretty good memory of things when I was like 4 and 5. But, with my kids, my youngest son, he has some memory of things around that age, around 18 months old, but he's a freaking genius too. So there's that. People here brought food over after people casseroles and stuff, because when people are grieving, they don't have the wherewithal to prepare food. They can hardly eat if they try. So exactly. I'm so sorry you went through that, Anna Bees. Oh, it just sucks losing people, doesn't it? And I think, it sucks whether it's like medical or an accident, but when it's something so sinister and so unnecessary as domestic violence, it's just that much more horrifying. To help domestic violence survivors, so we'll see what happens with that. And we'll go ahead, and since it's 2 hours long and puppies are in. Oh, come here, little guy. Come here, little Mookie. Come here, baby. Mookie. Come here. I want you guys to see Mookie in her jacket. Oh, she hates it. She's so humiliated because it's freezing outside. It's like single digits probably tonight. Let's see. Oh, isn't she so funny? She's like a hunter, or like a brawny man. I don't know. What am I trying to think of when you wear this kind of checkered flannel? I'm thinking some guy that lives in a log cabin, right? Mookie. Tears to heart on the head. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging. And it's so nice to see you. I know Anna was trying to get me to go live last night, and I really wanted to. Even tired, but I couldn't because other complications. So I would have if I didn't have the complications. But thank you for encouraging me. And here we are tonight. And I can't make promises because I don't want to break promises, but you know me, I love to do my lives as often as possible. Like, once a day as often as possible. I'm not so into doing them more than once a day these days, but maybe I think about it. Come here, little girl. Come, just after 10. These puppies need their dinner. They need their dinner. Just silly ragamuffin. Isn't she so funny? You can hardly even see her. She's so, oh, that fur. And then there's Coco. All right, darling, good night. It is terrible, but then we've got puppies. I hope you have a lovely evening, and thanks again for being here and on the replay crew too. Thanks to all, and drink your water.